My fingernails dug crescents into my palms as his voice cut through the room. "Street garbage in a borrowed dress," Thomas announced, wine glass in hand, his country club friends circling like hyenas. 23 pairs of eyes. None blinked. I folded the napkin beside my untouched plate, each crease sharp enough to cut. The smirk on his face, lazy, self-satisfied, certain, was worth memorizing. He thought he'd won. He thought humiliation would silence me. He had no idea. We met 7 years ago. I was 22, waiting tables at a gallery event I couldn't afford to enter. He brushed past the art, eyes fixed on me like I was the only thing worth noticing. Back then, I thought it meant devotion. He called me his muse. I believed him. He was careful with his words in the beginning, gentle, patient, promising me a life where I'd never scrape or bow again. I left the basement apartment. I left my second job. I left my name behind, taking his instead. That's how betrayal works. It doesn't cut you the moment it arrives. It cuts after years of sharpening. The first sign came wrapped in cologne I didn't own. His cufflink glittered in our laundry basket, one half of a set I'd never seen. A week later, lipstick the shade of blood across a collar. But I didn't rage. I didn't beg. I smiled, poured his bourbon, let him believe his lies worked. I cataloged. I listened. I built a map of his movements, every whispered phone call, every business trip. Control is a weapon. I kept mine polished. By the time he told me, "You wouldn't survive without me," I already had 3 separate bank accounts hidden in my maiden name. By the time he left our bed smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, I had recordings of his late-night hotel bookings, his mistress's shrill laugh echoing through speakerphone. By the time he sneered, "You're nothing but the girl I plucked from the gutter," I had already become something he didn't recognize. Patient. I never wanted messy revenge. Screaming, throwing things, breaking dishes. No. I wanted precision. First, I visited his lawyer, alone. I smiled politely across the mahogany desk and handed over a neatly organized folder of every infidelity, every hidden bank transfer, every shady business deal he'd buried in shell corporations. Facts are heavier than emotions. They crush quietly. Then I called the IRS, anonymously. Numbers don't lie. And Thomas was very bad at hiding money when distracted by a blonde with acrylic nails. Finally, I reached out to his country club board, sent them the receipts, the photographs, the mistress's unpaid luxury car lease listed under his name. A whisper of scandal in those halls spreads faster than fire. And so tonight, when he called me garbage, I didn't flinch. Why should I? His seat on the board had already been revoked. His accounts were frozen pending investigation. His mistress had already learned she wasn't the only one, her tantrum broadcast on social media for the whole city to save her. All while he stood there, believing I was powerless. His laughter echoed across the dining room, that sharp, cruel bark he always saved for me. "You really thought you belonged here?" I met his eyes. Finally, I let myself smile. "Funny," I said, voice low, calm. "That's exactly what the board asked me when they voted you out this morning." Silence swallowed the table. The friends who once laughed on command stared now with a predator's calculation, waiting to see which way the power would shift. Thomas blinked. His glass tipped, red wine bleeding across the white tablecloth like a wound. "What are you talking about?" His voice cracked. I leaned forward, every word deliberate. "The IRS will explain the rest." His hand shook. He dropped the glass. Shards scattered across marble, catching light like broken promises. No one looked at me anymore. They looked at him. Just him. The man unraveling. That was the moment I had waited for. Not his shouting, not his rage. the stillness after, when he realized there was nothing left to grab. I stood, smoothed my dress, and left the napkin folded perfectly beside my empty plate. In the parking lot, the night air tasted clean. For years I had carried the stench of his arrogance, the weight of his sneer pressing against my skin. Now it slid away, like smoke after fire. I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I simply walked toward the car I'd bought with money he never knew existed. Some garbage doesn't rot, it burns. It burns slow, steady, deliberate, until the empire built on it collapses in ash. And I was never the one in ruins.